very, very German. For those ones who are thinking, why is she saying very, very German? We just both said, okay, it's very formal, very strict, very German. It will be out tomorrow, what we do right now. That's why it's so formal. Maybe they know then where to go in and where to go out. Thank you for doing this with
Pleasure.
me.
It was a long way to come.
It is a long way.
You trapped everybody here. They can't get away, can they?
You saw the secret sauce we have in here. We Germans, we trap the people up here, and then they cannot go out anymore. Yeah. And then we have all the kinds of content in here. So do you think this is a place where you would like to stay the next 5 days?
Well, it's a bit too far out for me.
Okay.
So actually, I don't stay in Cannes. I stay up in the hills, and I travel down every morning. I stay at St. Paul, and I travel down. It takes me about 40 minutes, which gives me a chance to read all the stuff from last night. So I feel as though I've kept up with things, when I land in the middle of Cannes. So
you read your emails on the way down here, then you know what was going on during.
I sort of as best as I can. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say I know what's going on. On the basis of what I read, I think I might know a little bit.
Okay, and then when you're here, you feel all prepared?
I sort of up to date.
Okay, then let's see what you can give to the audience, the tiny one we have here.
Something that I can give that will take away.
Oh, I definitely think so.
Right,
because
we have all had clients here, right?
We have all clients here.
Right. There's no agency people here.
Oh, there are agents. Shall they raise their hands?
There are agency people as well. Oh, gee whiz.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I could be rude about all the agencies without worrying.
You know what? This talk is just between you and me.
Okay, all right. So nobody is listening.
Nobody is listening.
Okay.
So you can say everything that you want.
Fine. Is this on the record or off the record?
It's on the record.
On the record. Okay.
But you know what? This industry maybe needs some advice from you. Nobody knows. That's why.
I think the last person they need advice from is me.
Okay.
Although the industry is in trouble.
Okay.
In its old form.
Okay.
Not in its new form. So the opportunity.
You jump right in there, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Right, with both
Start.
feet. So the opportunity is in a new form. It's not in an old form. In the old form, it's slowly dying.
Okay. Before we go to dying.
Yeah.
In 2018, you founded S4 Capital.
Yes.
That was a straight-up digital agency at that time.
Yes, correct.
And media was like, is that the right way to go? And you said, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. Time flies by. We all see it was a good way to go.
Yes.
Now you're up there again, doing something where all the others or the media is saying, going the way with AI, is that the right way to go? So where do you get the proof or the gut feeling that those are the right ways to go? Is it from reading emails while driving down here? Or?
I'm not driving at the same time I'm reading emails. So I think there are 4 things around S4 or Monks is our operating brand which are important to remember. Firstly, as we talked about being digital only, which is more relevant today. So when we started 6 years ago, digital was half the market. It's now 70% of the market. And I think, everybody should understand the numbers. I know it's boring, but let me just go through the numbers. It's $1 trillion industry, and 700 billion is digital, and 300 billion is traditional. So traditional meaning free-to-air television, newspapers in their old form, felling trees, distributing newsprint, old radio, not digital radio, old outdoor, not digital outdoor, and the like, magazines as well. So digital only, data driven, which today is even more relevant. I mean, the era, when I interviewed Will.i.am this morning, his first AI investment was in 2012. Mm-hmm. And actually he said he went to MIT. He's an interesting guy because, never knew his father, brought up by his mother, four brothers and sisters, and 4 adopted, as I said to you. But very sort of focused on education, really. So he got his inspiration around AI from MIT in 2012, and he did a course at Harvard. Which is the only thing I share with him is that we both went to Harvard. And so what I say, so data today is even more relevant in an era of AI, so data-driven. We go to market as faster, better, cheaper. We argue internally as to whether cheaper is the right way to do it, but I think it is. It catches people's attention. You might say faster, better, more efficient. And then the 4th thing is unitary brand. Now, every one of the holding companies is trying to be, one Publicis, one WPP, one Omnicom, whatever. Even Omnicom, which is very anybody from Omnicom here? No? Which is very vertical in terms of its brands, good brands, BBDO, TBWA, etc. But very classical and very old-fashioned. But even they are trying to group it together. They've formed this Omnicom advertising group. Andrew Robertson retires. They put somebody on top of it from TBWA, and he's running it as a group. So everybody's trying to group it together. So those 4 principles, digital only, data-driven, faster, better, cheaper, and unitary, are more relevant today than they were before.
But was it that you saw that coming?
No.
Or was it that you were talking to people, feeling?
If I was omniscient, I wouldn't struggle to get here and come and talk to you. So that's it. So I'm not all powerful, not all knowledgeable. It's a view about the way the industry is going. And I think the challenge here this week, if you said to me, what do I think Cannes is about this week? It's about whether AI will kill the advertising industry. And my answer to that would be, and we're on Tuesday, and we have until Friday to change our minds. By the way, most people will have gone by Friday, which was the purpose of Cannes. The purpose of Cannes was Friday night and the awards, but most people will be gone. But as my view is currently, and it won't change by Thursday or Friday, is that AI will kill the existing model. And the new model, which has some of the characteristics, the 4 characteristics that I mentioned, will become more and more relevant.
I mean, I saw you quite often here on stage already.
Yep.
I know that you are often the voice no one else is on stage. So
Yeah, the other people are there. I mean, if you look at it, Artur was there with campaign on Monday. Mark Reed, even though he has resigned.
Yeah, but you had Apple, for example. And Apple was like, it comes from your heart, your brain, and then in your heart, you have to do it by hand. They had handwritten stuff up there.
Yeah.
Cannes is promoting at the moment that the biggest trend is traditional at the moment. Print and publishing is really big at the moment. And then you come and say, no, it's digital.
Not so. It's
no?
nonsense. I mean, traditional is the 300 billion. It's going backwards. Okay, if you're in traditional free-to-air or publishing, your revenues, your ad revenues are going down by 0 to 15%, depending on whether you have live sport. If you have live sport, you're down 0, 5, 10%. If you don't have live sport, 5, 10, 15%. Look at what's happening to the classic companies. So Bob Iger has had to come back again to rescue Disney. David Zaslav merges Warner Brothers Discovery and now has to dismember them. Shari Redstone is selling her birthright, Sumner Redstone's, or trying to, into Ellison with a Paramount deal. I mean, it's mayhem, okay, in the traditional business. In the advertising holding company, of the 6 holding companies, only 1 is doing well, Publicis. Omnicom was flat in Q1. People don't look at the numbers. They were actually flat. And I don't know why Ren is trying to buy IPG. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And it may be that, anybody from IPG here? We've got, in my view, the deal may not go through. I mean, to lose Nespresso in the middle of the deal, and the number of people who have been fired or who are leaving or looking for jobs, it doesn't make sense. There were 127,500 people when they announced the deal. They must be down to about 120 by now. They will go to about 105, 110 in my view. And it's all about reducing cost, and they're losing significant amounts of revenue. I mean, they did okay in the Mars thing. I mean, IPG kept the food and nutrition, not the food and nutrition business, they kept part of the business around PR and social. But I think they are really challenged. The other thing that nobody says is that the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, have made 2 information requests to Omnicom and IPG. If you Google, Gemini, ChatGPT, Grok, information requests from the FTC, you will find that in only 7 to 8% of the deals go through as originally proposed when there is a second information request. So either the deal has to be modified or it's nixed. So if I was John Wren, I'd drop the deal. I mean, my shareholders have already said yes. IPGs have said yes because they want to get out. But if I was him, I'd drop it.
So when I hear you talking about that, is there any future for media agencies or not?
No, for media agencies that are digitally orientated, yes.
Okay.
But you know, to your point, that 700 billion, let's go through the trillion for a minute.
Yeah.
It's really important, I think, to understand who has what. Google has 250 billion. So they're a quarter of the total market, and they're over a third of the digital market, of the 700 billion. Meta is 150 billion, so they have a 15 share. So Google's 25%, Meta's 15, Amazon is 6, and TikTok outside China is 4. Add those numbers up. The top 4 platforms in the West control 50% of the market, and they're 5/7. So we're talking about over 70% of the digital market. There's huge concentration. You know, I got criticized a few weeks ago for saying that CMOs, you know, their life is more simplified. And now there may be, maybe I was exaggerating. I don't think I was.
Let me jump in quick therefore, because we have a lot of CMOs in here. He said that the job for a CMO is getting way easier.
Not way easier, simplified.
Simplified. So now you can go ahead so that everyone knows what you're referring to by.
Agree with that? One does. Okay, you're a very wise man. Obviously, the rest of them don't. No, I think it's got simpler because your choices are becoming more and more prescribed. I mean, true, they have multiple platforms, like Meta has multiple platforms, but essentially, that's what it's about. That dominance. And then on the east, it's Alibaba, Tencent, and it's the rest of ByteDance. It's 110 billion ByteDance that is in China, plus the 40 outside with TikTok's 150 billion. So remember, ByteDance is the same size as Meta. People forget that. Okay, that dominance is going to continue because the investment in AI is being made by all these companies. You know, those 6 platforms, plus Nvidia, plus Apple, plus Microsoft, plus Adobe, Oracle, and Salesforce. That's basically the game. I mean, you could add SAP, you can add IBM, but basically, and those Mag 7, what we now call MAGA 7 with Trump in the White House again, the MAGA 7 invest $500 billion every year in AI capacity. Amazon spends 100 billion, Meta spends 75, Google, Alphabet spends 75. So just to put it in perspective, Google probably publicly disclosed spends $4.5 billion in OPEX, operating expenditure, on advertising, and is spending $75 billion a year on expanding AI capacity. So the dominance of those companies is going to continue. And one final point, they will remain dominant because from a defense point of view, and offense point of view, from a military point of view, they are absolutely essential. China has not cut up Alibaba into 8 parts, which President Xi said he was going to do 3 or 4 years ago when Jack Ma got into trouble. It is still one company, maybe 2, Alibaba and Ali Cloud, but essentially it's one company. Why did he not cut it up? Because he knows that having strong tech companies is essential from a defensive point of view. Europe's weakness is it doesn't have a tech infrastructure that, you know, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and indeed the UK can really rely on.
Well, when someone is listening now to you and you say Europe doesn't have that, so maybe there is a chance of creating a new agency.
No, I think it's agency, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about hardware and software, and I think, you know, the toothpaste is out of the tube. I mean, I think the companies that I mentioned will remain, my view is they will remain dominant. I mean, I'm subjective about it because we're pinning the future of S4 and Monks on the platforms. I believe a closer relationship with the platforms is absolutely quintessentially important. So when Zuckerberg says, you know, Advantage Plus plus content, I get an integrated end-to-end model. It's what we've been talking about for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
We've said our role is to get closer to the platform. So just localizing it to Germany for a minute.
Yeah. Yes,
If I'm
please.
Service Plan,
Yeah.
okay, I'm basically a German agency. I mean, I'm trying to do stuff outside Germany, but my heartland is in Munich, Bavaria, and the German companies that are there. And I have a strong position. What I have to do is get closer to the platforms, the 6 that I mentioned, maybe even it's the 4 Western ones because they have exposure to China, but not significant. Get close to them to develop that relationship. So embedding yourself with the platforms is absolutely key, because the clients are going to say to are going to take the result of the algorithm, and they're going to come to us, a quotes or
Yeah.
Service Plan, an independent agency, and say, is this the right way to go?
2 questions. First is, you said they will stay. Will the people using those platforms, will they stay always on those platforms? Because at the end, when
The clients.
Yeah, no. People using it, because you're looking for your target group to reach as a client.
Well, if you look at the fact, if you acknowledge the fact that they're spending $500 billion a year to develop the AI capacity, what are the 2 attributes that established companies need in an AI world? They need data.
Yeah.
And distribution.
Yeah.
Who has data and distribution? Apple has it. I should have said Apple and Microsoft as well. Microsoft has it. NVIDIA has it. Salesforce has it. Adobe has it. Oracle has it. Alibaba has it. Tencent has it. ByteDance has it. Alphabet has it. Meta has it. And Amazon has it. They have the data and the distribution. Building data, I just came from a client of ours in the pharma area, consumer pharma, and it's tough for them because they don't have consented first-party data from clients. That's absolutely critical. So data is critical and distribution is critical. So the signals from the platforms plus first-party data plus distribution.
And then you have those data, but you have no budget. And you said at the beginning that AI could help there, right?
Whoa. So you have budgets, but to your point,
They're shrinking at the moment.
well, they're not shrinking. So the ad industry is growing. Data, the digital side of the industry is growing by 10 to 15%, and that's 70%. This morning on my trip down, headlining campaign, IPG cuts the forecast for growth of advertising in the UK to 6.4%. It's pas mal. It's good, pretty good. It's okay. I'd settle for 6%. Okay, so it's not that it's cutting. I mean, you're right at one level in that tariffs plus US China plus Russia Ukraine plus Iran equals a lot of uncertainty, and people are unwilling to make decisions. I mean, most companies, there's a split between ownership and control. Not with the Mittelstand in Germany, maybe, but with in most countries, the listed sector, there are managers who run companies, and it's owned by institutional investors. Managers are primarily interested in remaining in their positions. No criticism intended, but it's the reality. So in an uncertain world, they are hesitant to make decisions. Not just about AI, but about, and I don't blame them. I sat in a room in Washington. The Canadian tariff was at 25% when we started that morning. It went to 50% by midday, and it had gone back down to 25% by 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't know what to do. So what do? You pull in your horns, right?
Yeah.
And you say, I'm going to sit there. And then private equity is no different. Their time frames are also 4 or 5 years in terms of hold periods. So the world is very much more short-term. And I think consumers have become much more short-term. Long-term brand building, which my dad said, was fundamentally important. I'm not so sure. It's sacrilege to say that sitting here in Cannes at the advertising festival, but I think it's true. I think people have become much more short-term in their thinking, consumers and clients and agencies, and therefore mid and lower funnel has become more prevalent. I just came from a session with Taboola.
Yeah.
Israeli, effectively a startup of 13 years ago. Interesting example of performance marketing at work. Not huge. I think he's got 2,500 people now, 2,700 people now. But a good example of performance marketing and the need for it. So everybody's worried about short-term results. So it makes people very, very sort of focused on short-term.
But everyone is looking for an answer how to use then this big topic AI to be fast. We have hyper-personalized ads as a big trend coming up. Everyone is doing. Last year we were talking when we were here about retail media.
Yeah. Well, we're still talking about. We did a session last night with Walmart, with Seth Dallaire, and retail advertising and connected television. But just let's get it into perspective.
Yeah.
Walmart did $4.5 billion in ad revenues, or will do this year. I think last year was $3 billion. I mentioned the figures from Google at 250 to TikTok down at 40, right? And they're half the market. You then drop down. Microsoft is probably 19 billion. Apple's 11. But this is ad revenues. Apple's 11. Twitter used to be 5. X is now 2.5. Pinterest is 4. Snap is about 5.5, 6. Gets a lot of ink, but it's really no insult intended. But it's de minimis. I mean, it's neither here nor there. So the big bananas are with the ones that I mentioned, not with things. Retail is important. They have a walled garden. They have their own data. They get the signals from the platforms. Don't get me wrong. Amazon is already 60 billion. It will go to 100 billion.
Going to Monks.
Yeah.
To have the answers for your clients.
Well, if we had the answer for our clients, we would be infinitely more successful than we are. So I can't say that we have the answer for clients. We have a view.
And that is?
Well, the view is that, talking specifically about AI, we think it affects our industry in 5 ways. You mentioned a couple of them. Visualization and copywriting. So we produced an ad for Puma in 10 days, I think it was, at a cost of a couple of $100,000, which normally would take 2 months and cost millions. We've done some secret work for clients I'm not allowed to talk about, where we produced same commercial and with even more advanced technology. We're heavily into Runway. We've invested in our venture fund in Runway. I was with a company called Luma AI this morning, run by an Indian PhD, super interesting guy. Humane, we're announcing tomorrow a JV between Humane, which is the Saudi AI company, and Luma, worth watching. Not tomorrow, on Thursday, when we're also showcasing Runway and Minimax, which is the Chinese equivalent of Runway. So they are about shortening the time for visualization and copywriting. Agencies charge on time. The clients that are here, baking in the sun, pay on the time that they spend. That model won't work anymore because you're compressing the time. So procurement will quite rightly say to the agency, it's not taking you 2 months, and we're not going to Hawaii. You're doing it in the studio, and you're doing it in 4 or 5 days. Really interestingly, Runway in New York, Cristobal, the guy who runs it, showed me 4 or 5 weeks ago, a 5-minute animated film that one developer had developed in 12 hours overnight, which is on their website now. And then a short story, sort of like a YouTube short story, again, overnight by one developer. The Luma stuff that you'll see on Thursday, incredible. So the advances in technology are huge in real time. So copywriting and visualization, one thing. You mentioned personalization at scale, huge opportunity. Everybody in this room, in this garden, should watch Netflix and imitate the Netflix model. The model that works in an AI age is hyper-personalization at scale, using first-party data and signals from platforms. That's the second area. Media planning and buying. Planning and buying that $1 trillion that I mentioned, 700 billion in digital, 300 in traditional, using algorithms is the way of the future. And so that's the third area. Fourth area is general efficiency, and fifth is spreading knowledge in the organization and flattening it, which Jensen Huang and NVIDIA are the classic example.
Are you curious and interested and hopeful for the future of creativity when you see all this?
Well, I asked will.i.am that question this morning, and his view is, human creativity will always be paramount. I'm sort of 50-50 on it. I think machines will become more powerful than people, and I think there is an inherent danger in that. And maybe I'm just influenced. I was at a Saudi conference, the FII conference in Riyadh, and there were several investors in Musk, a few of which I did a panel with like this. And one of them has been following Musk for years, and he's been following AI for years. And he's been working on AI since, I think, about 2012. And he is extremely worried, and maybe I'm unduly influenced by it, but he is extremely worried by what he has seen by machines' ability to outwit protocols and controls. I mean, machines, he's got several examples of where there were protocols on procedures and machines found a way around beating the protocols and the procedures over time. So I think the odds are, and Bill Gates has said it, Sam Altman said it, Mark Zuckerberg is saying it, at some point in time, and this is when bad actors, we will have bad actors, they will be using this stuff. I think the cat is out of the bag, the toothpaste is left of the tube. There is no Oppenheimer moment here now. That's gone. The regulators cannot keep up with the development. So I'm deeply, philosophically worried about that. From an industry point of view, on media planning and buying, it will have massive impact. The human mind cannot work out the permutations. A 25-year-old media planner or buyer can, with all due respect, cannot work out all the permutations. An algorithm can. The human mind can then look at the output and say, is this the right distribution? So I think the way that we perform as agencies is going to change dramatically, and all the classic structures are going to have to change. And the pressure that the holding companies are feeling is in part, if not wholly, due to those pressures.
I know that you have to go, and you brought us Juanita, who will show you guys a little more, maybe some answers, what you can do to survive in this time. But one last question, please.
When you say survive, that's being very no, because the people in this audience are clients and some agency people. The clients are going to have to adapt their model.
Yeah.
The agencies are going to have to adapt the model. There is an opportunity there. I did a BBC media program last week, and the question was, is this the end of the golden era? Yeah. So golden era 1.0, yes. Golden era 2.0, no. There's a huge opportunity. But the problem is, this was a bunch of French creatives who used to smoke a lot of Gauloise and used to drink a lot of Burgundy or Bordeaux in June in Cannes. Yeah. That was Roger Hatchuel, who started, as you well know, Cannes. Today, walk down the Croisette, it's dominated by tech companies and by data companies. So the nature of the beast has changed. And everybody in the industry, not everybody, the traditionalists in the industry say, why can't we have the days of Don Draper and Mad Men back again? They put on rose-tinted spectacles and they say, creative doesn't need data. Data is about insight. It helps creative. These tools help you produce better work, God forbid, more efficiently, less expensively, and make it available to democratizes content and video. I mean, the guy this morning was really interesting, the Indian PhD at Luma. He said he does not believe that people will communicate by text anymore. He believes, and he spent 5 years at Apple. He sold a business to Apple, spent 5 years, then left and started Luma. It has a valuation of about 1.3, 1.4 billion already. He believes people will correspond through text, through video, not through text. Okay? So communications will be visual, and that's his fundamental belief, and which I think is that there's a lot of truth in that. That's how we earn our living, by communicating visually with consumers to tap their emotions and their psychology. So it's a different way of doing it. So don't lament about Bill Bernbach and David Ogilvy and Raymond Rubicam and Stanley Rieser. Don't lament about it. Look at Zuckerberg and Sundar, or Larry and Sergey and Bill Gates, and just get a better understanding of the technology and deploy it. Because if there's one strength that monks have, it is deploying technology at scale. They're super good at doing that.
I will not let you get off the hook before you go. You have to answer me this question, because you are an important voice in our industry, and it's a personal question from my side.
In my own mind, nobody else's mind. Go on.
But you walk around here, people see you, they hear you, and you see those young, ambitious people running around here quite a lot this time again. What would you give them? What advice would you give them?
Well, people often ask that, and you don't have to learn anything anymore because you've got AI. So, but my advice remains exactly the same. It is learn code, which means be facile with technology. Learn Chinese, which may not be popular in right-wing Republican circles, but I think it's still true. And then the third thing I would say is learn Spanish. I actually think that is going to become increasingly important, because I think Latin America, of the continents, obviously Africa is underappreciated and will become more and more important. It's very volatile, which makes it difficult. But Latin America has superb creative people. Some of the best creative people in the world, without doubt, come from Buenos Aires. It's extraordinary, right? And then some of the best tech people come from Mexico, Colombia, Brazil, and Argentina. So I would say those three things: learn code, learn Chinese, learn Spanish.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this with us.